Rebecca Koffler, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kim. It's excellent to be here with you and your audience again.
Okay, so let's talk about the latest Putin's playbook. That maybe I think you're going to have to write a second book. Things feel like they're getting really tense. I mean, many of us are worried that we are marching into that this time it's going to be a hot war between the United States and Russia. We've got a lot of movement going on with Pete Hegseth calling the top military brass to Virginia next week. That's unprecedented. That's strange. Usually only happens if we're about to engage in a serious war. There's a lot of different suspicious drones flying all over Europe, from Denmark to, I think today, Germany said that they had some suspicious drones flying into their airspace. Poland had drones in their airspace. Estonia had Russian fighter jets in their airspace. So, and then you've got Trump now saying, all right, we're backing Ukraine, essentially. Ukraine, go for it. Get all your territory back and we'll give you all the weapons. So a lot of us are worried that this means hot war with Russia this time. What do you think Putin is? What's in his latest playbook from your perspective?
Sure. Well, Putin's playbook has always been the same. He wants to secure Russia's strategic security perimeter on which it relied for centuries, of which Ukraine is part of. And since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 and the admission of a series of Eastern European countries and the Baltics, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia into NATO, that strategic security perimeter has reduced from about 1,000 miles to 100 miles, right? That level of proximity is unacceptable from the threat standpoint. Just like we would not allow Russia, China, Iran, or any adversary to get as close as Mexico or Canada, Putin does not want any NATO warfighting capability on the territory of Ukraine. And right now, there's plenty of not only, we have tons and tons of military hardware that was flown to Ukraine during, the Biden administration and now Trump, right? Anything from, non-lethal aid all the way to strategic systems such as Patriot missiles. So what Putin wants to do, he wants to remove all that capability that presents a threat to Russia without starting a direct war between Russia and NATO. Now, we are obviously still equipping and training Ukrainians how to kill Russians. There's a combat training center that still exists about 12 miles or so from the Polish border on the territory of Ukraine, where we have our military and intelligence personnel training Ukrainians how to kill Russians. So what Putin is doing with these breaches of sovereign airspace of NATO countries, as you correctly pointed out, Estonia, Poland, Romania, most recently Germany, is he is sending a strategic message, right? Strategic signaling, that's an intelligence term. Do not go there, do not go there, de-escalate.
Yeah.
Ukraine continues to escalate. Ukraine has struck critical infrastructure, specifically some oil refineries in Russia, and all the way it has about a month ago or so, it struck part of Russia's strategic nuclear triad. Putin cannot afford this type of threat on his borders. Now, pro-Ukrainian, people, they argue, well, Ukraine is justified to do this because the Russians are waging war on them. Well, that may be so, from the just war standpoint, the laws of armed conflict, of course, they're justified. But Ukraine simply is not able to win this war. There's no military path to victory for Ukraine. And so the Russians want to end this proxy war. Effectively, it's Russia, we're in a proxy war, right? And Putin wants to end our support. And if we don't end it, the playbook is escalate to de-escalate. So since we don't de-escalate, Putin is going to continue escalating. And that's how unintentionally we may end up in this hot war. This is what every single war game that I participated in back in the intelligence community and even led red teams, that's how it started. Neither the US nor Russia wants to have a direct kinetic confrontation because it will go all the way to space warfare, nuclear warfare. But unintentionally, we keep, climbing that escalation ladder and getting sucked into this war, which is exactly what I predicted in my book. That is going to happen.
I mean, it feels like we're there now. I mean, I think that's what I'm getting at is it feels like we're now there. I mean, it feels like with the top brass going to Virginia, with all of these incursions into the airspace of NATO nations, this feels like we're there. That I mean, clearly Putin and Trump meeting in Alaska, I mean, nothing happened with that. So what was it? What do you think Putin wanted? What do you think he wanted out of that meeting? And what does he want that he's not getting that's causing this to continue to escalate?
What he wants to do is what I just said. He wants NATO and the United States to stand down and remove that capability. That's what he wants. And we're not doing it. We continue. And Trump, as you said, President Trump just issued a statement on Truth Social that, yes, maybe Ukraine can win, and we are going to continue to sell. Now, we're going to sell weapons to NATO, and NATO can do whatever they want with them. They're going to continue arming Ukraine. Now, there's not enough weapons or money. There's no amount of weapons and money that we can provide to Ukraine that would allow Ukraine to win. It's mathematically impossible, and I can explain why later in the show if you're interested. But what our objective is, our Pentagon's objective is to erode Russia's warfighting capability to unacceptable levels so they cannot do that again. That is what Lloyd Austin stated and many other leaders. But the problem is we're not just fighting Russia, we're fighting also China, because it is in China's interest to continue supporting Russia, both financially and from the standpoint of sending prohibited electronic components for military hardware and all of these things, because we think we're so clever, right? We're eroding Russia's military capability, but at the same time, China is depleting our weapons arsenal by supporting Russia. Our weapons arsenal is already at very dangerous level. It is below what we need to actually fight a war. We only have 25% of Patriot missiles that we need to prosecute a war, right? That is why Elbridge Colby, in the Pentagon, Trump's appointee for defense policy, he tried, remember, to stop sending military hardware to Ukraine. But then President Trump got mad at Putin that Putin is not playing ball, and Trump said, okay, give it back to him. But we are steadily depleting our own. So, and that is why Putin is escalating, because A, he cannot afford this level of threat on his doorstep, and B, he also knows that at one point we are going to get to such low levels that we're going to have to stop. So you see, it's like a snowball. We're eroding Russia's, China is eroding ours. Russia and China are working together, and together they have more military hardware than we do. In fact, Russia produces right now, in 1 month, more munitions, tanks, air defenses, missiles, you name it, right? Artillery shells, than entire Europe produces in 1 year. Think about that. It's because Putin transitioned his military and economy 7 years prior to the invasion, and we are officially not at war. We have no military industrial capacity, and neither do Europeans, to sustain that level of tempo of sending armaments to Ukraine. And so
Okay.
that's why I imagine that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, called in all of the generals to see, okay, what is our stockpile actually? Do we have a strategy to win on Russia? And we do not, because we just don't fight the type of wars that the Russians fight. The Russians fight wars of attrition, right? This is why President Trump, he tried to embarrass Putin, and he said, Russia is a paper tiger, that any real military would just win this war in, I forgot what he said, like in 3 days or in a week. Well,
Yeah.
there's no way we can fight a war with Russia, because we simply, the Europeans don't even have enough manpower, because only 10 out of about 40 European countries, depending on how you count what's considered to be a European country, only 10 of them can have both a standing army and a mandatory conscription. Putin, on
Yeah.
the other hand, he authorized the increase of his armed forces to the maximum allowed by the Constitution, which is about 1,300,000 active duty. Okay, we have the entire United States have 1.5 million, including national reserves, right? Are we going to send our men and women in Putin's nuclear furnace? Because we know it's going to go nuclear, because we war gamed it. And so right now there's a dilemma. President Trump does not want to be a loser. He hates that. But he promised on his campaign, I don't know for what reason, I don't know who advised him to make this idiotic promise that he's going to end this war. It's impossible to end unless you meet 100% Putin's requirements, because he has all the cards. We have no cards, because we were sleeping at the wheel and I saw how we were sleeping at the wheel. We were not prepared for this. And so they are now trying to figure out, what the heck do we do about that? No, Putin does not want to start the war. He wants to see our reaction. He wants to prepare. It's a test. It's basically, what is our reaction? How many minutes does it take for us to scramble, our jets to escort the Russians out of their airspace? What are we willing to actually do? So all of that is timed so that when the war does come, they are prepared. And again, we're not. And that is the playbook.
So you think that they're not intending on a hot war. They're just trying to gather all the intel so that we know they have the intel, which makes it to where we know they can win a war against us, or like what exactly?
So I need to nuance this, obviously. They're ready for war. They have the war plan on the books. It's described in my book right here.
Okay.
The whole war plan at the unclassified level. They want to avoid it. But if we keep, escalate, like let's say Ukrainians, and they already attacked Russia's strategic nuclear triad. Remember, they deployed, there was a whole operation to deploy clandestinely a bunch of drones and to strike the airfield where the Russians held their strategic bombers. That is one of the legs of the strategic nuclear triad that consists of air, naval assets and ICBMs. That is like an ultimate red line. Ukraine keeps tripping those red lines, and Putin keeps saying the Russians have already, and that's what they are telegraphing to us. Don't go there. Don't go there. That's why Putin actually updated Russia's nuclear doctrine just a few months ago and lowered the threshold for employing nuclear weapons. That is why 5 days after the invasion of Ukraine, Putin placed Russian nuclear weapons in a special, I quote, special combat regime. And they keep telling us both openly, and they are signaling to us to de-escalate, to stop this, to let it be, to stay out of what Russia perceives is their backyard, right?
Yeah.
And we don't
Okay.
do that. And so at some point, it's going to be enough. And that is a problem with Putin, that some people say, well, it's just because he says things and he says things, and then there comes a point he goes boom. Because Putin was warning that don't get Ukraine into NATO, and we kept
Yeah.
inviting them into NATO and taking steps towards it, and that's when he invaded. So I don't want to say that he's not going to start the war, because they have a preemptive doctrine. But at one point, we will have tripped sufficient amounts of red lines when he will have to initiate.
Okay. And that's what I was just going to ask you.
Unless we do it first.
And then that would obviously trigger. So what would trigger it? Would it be a direct attack on Moscow, like a direct attack on Russian soil by NATO, in order for, because obviously Ukraine has been doing that.
They're not going to wait for that.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.